Since the dawn of time, man has been curious. And for almost as long, the Vibes Broadcast Network has sought the truth. Investigate, discuss, explore. Okay, maybe in other episodes, but this one is just listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I have here Miss Desiree Maya, and I guess it's safe to say you're a life coach.
I am.
And you're a podcaster.
And I'm a podcaster. So
All
we're
right.
sharing this amazing space.
Exactly. It's nice that you have real people giving real assessments on, things that they're passionate about, and which is why I started this one. I'm very geared towards positivity, of growing up in a negative environment and not really getting the encouragement that I should have. Was very down on myself, fell into depression, ended up with a bad case of anxiety and due to some things that happened to me when I was a child, PTSD. And it's so easy to get caught up in all that bad stuff and think down on yourself, and you've convinced yourself you're just not worth anybody's time. I've actually tried to commit suicide a few times when I was younger, and the group of people that I've associated myself with now, they lift you up. There's people that are geared to success, to helping other people, and that's something I wanted to give back to the world. And so I go on and I try to find people like you or life coaches that can encourage people and lift them out of that muck and mire that is depression, or maybe they just don't know how to think correctly when it comes to, wanting to be a success. And so I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about you, and we're going to get into a conversation. And as I said before we started, I'd like to talk about mindset. So tell us about you.
Absolutely. I resonate with so much of everything that you just said, Kyle. So yes, I am Des Maya, and right now I'm hailing from Las Vegas, Nevada. So I actually moved about 2 months ago from California, where I was born and raised in the Bay Area. I've been all over the place there, but my family is originally from Hawaii. So
Cool.
yeah, my mom's the youngest of 9 kids. And part of our reason for moving here to Las Vegas, things kind of come full circle, is because they call this the ninth island, apparently. There's a lot of people who migrate over here from Hawaii to, be closer to the mainland, and cost of living is maybe just a touch easier. So yeah, I'm out here, but like you mentioned, becoming a life coach was a process, because I think part of it was going through my own process. So very similar to you, you go through stuff in life that isn't easy. I lost my father. He was in the military. I didn't lose him that way. I lost him actually from a stroke when I was 9 years old and he was only 40.
Wow.
So that was a pretty heavy blow, because I was really close to my father, and he taught me so many things when I was young. So when I lost him, that was hard, and there wasn't a figure that came along and necessarily, I don't think anyone can ever replace your parent, but there wasn't another figure that came along to help me learn from a male perspective and have that kind of thing in my life. So there was a bit of a gap there. I was fortunate that I had uncles, and I have a great brother-in-law, and other positive male figures, but that was tough. And then the other experiences that I had were divorce. I got married for I've been in 2 marriages. The first one, I met my partner when I was 15 years old. And so kind of the very typical, you want to live a fairy tale kind of life, marry your high school sweetheart type of situation. And I got married at 22 and I was divorced at 25. So it was a 10-year relationship, but I was so young. You just don't know what you don't know. You really don't. But to your point about depression, when you're going through something like divorce at a young age, I looked at the ending of that relationship as not enoughness. There was something clearly that I did wrong to lead to the demise of my relationship. This person I thought I was going to spend forever with. So I blamed myself. I thought about suicide a lot. You get to certain points in life when you're in the valley of despair.
Yes.
And so part of my journey to getting to where I am today and doing coaching and consulting was the inward look I had to do for myself. And anytime you go through a major life transition, whether it's something like death or divorce, those are kind of extremes, is an opportunity to reinvent yourself. And it's an opportunity to take a look at your mindset to see how really are you thinking of things. And it's funny, I had shared this post just yesterday, and it says that life is, 10% of what happens to you. It's 90% of how you react to it.
Exactly.
I had to work on that 90% for a long time. And it had so much to do with exactly what you described as mindset. So that's kind of some of the backstory of things that I experienced that put me in a position to want to do more for myself, which in turn made me want to do more for others in this space.
When you get in certain relationships, and I know that was the whole thing about my first marriage, is when you get to the point where you have totally lost your own identity, then you're really in the wrong relationship.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't even see yourself anymore. And it was at that time for me at 25 years old, I was rediscovering everything, who I was, what I liked, what I wanted. I was very focused on my career. That was the one dimension that I felt like I could do something about. But part of my MO was to pour myself into something that I felt gave me something back. And instead of a relationship, it was a job, but that was part of the problem. It was, instead of dealing with the hard thing, I dealt with the thing I knew I could control. And when you do that, at the time, it seems like a smart idea, but
Right.
what happens, as you go through life is you realize the same things repeat themselves if you don't address them the first time.
Exactly.
So that was a hard lesson for me.
Well, I got out of that first marriage, and then when I got into the next relationship, I was doing the same things. I was just totally ignoring myself, trying to do everything for the other person. Got to the point where everything that went wrong, I felt was all my fault because I wasn't doing enough, and then hated myself. And it took years of actually living on my own to rediscover the things that I liked, the things that I wanted to do, the kind of person that I wanted to be. And you can share that with somebody, but if you're letting the other person just totally control every aspect of your life, and not necessarily that they're an abusive person, just that you've given that power to somebody else, you mold me the way you want me, that's not a healthy relationship.
And when you have that, that's what leads to things like codependency. And so part of what I had to learn, just like I'm sure you went through your journey, is how do you fill up your own cup and come to any kind of relationship, particularly when it's a partnership that's an intimate one, with a full cup and a whole sense of self. Because that is where you share in the confidence of who you are. You give someone else the confidence and the space to be who they are. And you don't have to not everything has to be a commonality. There are things that you can, disagree. There's things that you can share in, but you have a foundation that allows you to be yourself in the world while having a complement to you. And I kind of like using the analogy of like a cake, when you're fully baked, you're already whole and you're already delicious. If you find a partner that is the right partner and is aligned with you, and I like using to just kind of a bit of a caveat, and I'll come back to my cake analogy, is this notion of having people in your life who, what I call savers, which is these are people who support you, are aligned with you, value add to your life, elevate you, and rise with you. So that's like the definition of a saver. And I had to figure out how to put more of those people around me versus negative, like you said. And so when you do that and you build your cake and you're fully baked, like I said, if someone comes along and they're the right fit and they fit that criteria that I just described, they're like the sprinkles and the cherry on top. Yep. But you are whole all by yourself. It's just kind of a bonus if somebody comes along and they're able to complement your life, not complete your life. You're right. Already complete. But I think that's the mistake we make when we don't know ourselves, is we're seeking for this person to come along and fulfill this sense of wholeness that we feel like we lack because we haven't found it for ourselves yet.
Exactly. One thing that I really appreciate about the people that I've surrounded myself with, they do lift me up and they do encourage me, but I don't have like a yes man. I don't have somebody constantly telling me, oh, everything you do is wonderful. No, I like it when somebody tells me, hey, you know what, you could maybe improve things here, or you could change this, and being constructive about it, not destructive about it. So if you're honest with somebody and you're trying to help them grow, that's helping them. But when you're just that constant, oh, you're just so wonderful, yes, everything you do is perfect, that's not helpful at all either.
No. And I mean, that's why honesty is such a core foundation and element of a relationship, is because it is about being honest of the things that you enjoy, that you like, and you appreciate, but it's also being honest about where somebody needs to grow, where there's a gap in maybe the way that two people perceive things. And that's where you have to open the conversation, the dialogue up to engage and maybe even agree to disagree. But I made that mistake so many times, like you were describing, of just acquiescing. And in some cases, even just assuming things were okay when I knew inside they weren't. It's just easier to ignore and kind of wear a mask and, hang out in the masquerade ball instead of do the work that it takes, because it's easy to get into a relationship. Any of us can go out today, right now, meet someone that we're pretty attracted to, that has a fine, decent personality that we can find some common ground with. We can all do that. The difficulty is sustaining it.
All right.
That's the difficulty. And that is where the alignment and those principles of how you view life and walk in the world together, you have to have a particular sense of compatibility and the same definition around what commitment looks like to you in order for that to sustain itself, and a shared set of expectations. And I think that people miss wanting to talk about expectations, because that's the scary part. When you know that they're not aligned, then things might end sooner than you want. But you're also then not wasting someone else's time if you just want different things in life. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, exactly.
I just think that we, kind of force things because there's that, again, the stigma. And that's what I find so interesting, is like when someone says that they're single, it's almost like there is this societal reaction of like it's a disease or something. Like, oh, really? Oh, are you going to get in the dating scene? Is everything okay? I could set you, it's not a good thing, when
Mhm.
maybe the season of someone's life is that's exactly where they were meant to be. And it's the most blossoming time for them because it's that season of growth.
It's learning to live with yourself.
Mhm.
That's what a lot of people don't really get that chance because they get right into a relationship. Like for me, right out of high school, here
Oh,
I
yeah.
am, 19 years old, getting married, then having kids, and then 17 years of a marriage that should have never happened in the first place. Although I wouldn't trade my kids for anything.
Of course.
But you totally lose yourself. It was those years that I spent alone and living by myself, getting to know myself again, learning to love myself again,
Mhm.
living with myself. And then
Yeah.
once you've got who you are down to a T, then you can branch out and share it with other people. Otherwise, you're not really giving anything to anyone. And you think about it too, we're geared towards comfort.
Oh, all the
It,
time. It's just
exactly.
easier. You go on autopilot.
Hmm.
So much easier to not have to think and then just wake up and flow through things without much effort. But I can tell you, the one person that is guaranteed to be there with you in the end is you. And that is the only person and that we can say definitely. We can't even say that your kid is going to be there or your partner is going to be there. We want them to be there. We
Of
hope for
course.
that. We intend for that. But if you're not okay with you, then who are you really walking through this life with? That's
Exactly.
that's why you've got to do the work as hard as it is for yourself. So when you look in the mirror, you're proud of who you see. You're glad with how you've grown and you're excited for what's ahead of you. But when we go through these dark times, like we've discussed here, you and I have both been through divorce, and there's many other examples that we could talk about of things that people go through. Um, it's hard to look in the mirror.
Hmm.
It's hard to look at yourself and like yourself, let alone love yourself. And so, giving yourself grace is part of a mindset shift that I think is difficult because we tend to, as human beings, self-sabotage.
Yes, we do. I can testify to that. Well, and there's a lot of merit when you hear people say, if you don't love yourself, how can you expect other people to love you?
Oh, yeah. People will treat you how you treat you,
Hmm.
and then you throw in the things that are available that we have access to numb us: drugs, alcohol, anything else that can take us just a little bit away from our reality because we don't really like it. It's not that fun. And if we could just take it away for a second, the only thing about that, there's nothing wrong with it, except for the fact that it's still there
Yep.
when you're in your full, five senses. It's and and that is the thing that we have to get okay with waking up to is what actions do we need to take if we want different results to be produced in our lives, if we want relationships that are healthy, that
Hmm.
are thriving, that you can be completely vulnerable and honest with. And I think sometimes too, I know the mistake that I made, and if I could go back, I would change it. But that's why they say hindsight is 2020,
Yep.
is not being honest for the sake of someone's feelings, right? How many times do you withhold your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions because you're afraid of what someone is going to say or how they're going to feel? So by you not saying the full truth, you've put yourself into a position where you're now enduring, something that you don't want to, but you're also the culprit of why it's there by your lack of saying something. And that's how unhealthy relationships, you know, get that way. That's why there's infidelity. That's what, because it's easier for you find some solace in somewhere else, because it's just easier than having to tell the person that you're with. And now things are getting crazier. But, I think when we can just be fully 100% honest in the way that we need to be, it just changes the conversation. And if that means it changes the nature of a relationship, well, then maybe that's what needs to happen between two people.
That confidence, I think, helps build honesty, because when you are confident in yourself and in your relationships and things like that, you don't worry about, well, is this person going to just not like me anymore because I have a different opinion? I worried about that for so long. I didn't care about what I wanted. I cared about what my first wife wanted, and never wanted to speak up on anything because I was afraid, oh, here's somebody else is going to leave me. Because I got that all through my life. It seemed like one relationship after another, people were leaving me. And it's kind of started off with my father. He was in the same house, but we were just total opposites and didn't have a relationship. So that's one person that left me. And then, the years go by, I'd get into a relationship with a girl. I didn't have much confidence. Otherwise, I think I probably would have still had some of those relationships. But once again, I was always afraid this person's going to leave me. And when they did, there went my notch of confidence kept going down and kept going down to the point of I just didn't feel like I even needed to be on this earth anymore. And, you get out of that mindset, and it's not easy for everybody. It wasn't easy for me, but to give up, like you said, we fall into like the drugs and alcohol. I was a big time alcoholic. Cocaine was my drug of choice, and did it to excess. Finally, at age 36, I had a heart attack, and then it had to be, well, is this what I really want, or do I want to be there for my children? Do I want to be a better person? Do I want to be successful? When you're able to finally set those things down and get out of that, change your mindset, which we're talking about, and you get back on that right track. It's not easy for everyone. You have to change your mindset. So when somebody comes to you and they say, Des, I'm a broken person, and I just don't feel like I'm going to ever be successful in anything, how do you get them on the path to change their mindset?
Yeah. And I love that because, part of the reason my brand is called Born Unbreakable is because we are unbreakable. We just don't sometimes recognize that. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing in terms of mindset that I would tell someone is to start with the fact that you are worthy. You're worthy of happiness, you're worthy of joy, you're worthy of fulfillment. Now it's closing the gap between what I'm saying and what the person actually believes. And so in order for us to understand and get to that place where we believe that is by changing our story, because everything starts with a story. We all have it. Our story is a culmination of the events, the things that have happened to us. And most of the time, the reason we don't believe is because that story, that of the things that we remember are all the things that aren't good. Like you said, it could be something associated with our parents, the relationships that we've chosen, the environmental and the environment we were in, the circumstances we've been in. But if you want to not be a victim, the place that you have to start is taking extreme ownership of your life. Mm-hmm. So you say, and it's acceptance, and it's okay, and it's saying, okay, yes, I was born to alcoholic parents, or I was in a one-parent household, or I was in a domestic violence relationship. Part of it is getting okay with what's happened to you, but knowing that the things that have happened to you don't define who you are. And the fact that you can't change it. The only thing you can change is right now. Mm-hmm. is
So
what you're doing today.
do you find that some people just seem to be addicted to victimhood? Because I know for a while I felt like if I couldn't get people just to love me for who I was, maybe I could get people to feel sorry for me.
Oh, absolutely. Because victimhood doesn't require work,
Exactly.
right? You just get to not take action and sit there on the hopes and prayers of uh, other people filling in the gap. They're pouring into your cup
Mm-hmm.
instead of you pouring into your own. So you're wanting other people to take responsibility for the life that's yours. Until you take responsibility for the life that's yours, your cup will stay empty.
That's right.
And so you have to make that conscientious decision to say, I own this, but I'm also capable of doing something differently. And that's that part that's difficult because we're stuck in our habits and our patterns. Everything in life is just habits and behaviors, right?
Yep.
If you wake up and don't brush your teeth every day, they're probably going to get rotten and you're probably going to go to the dentist and get cavities. And they're going to tell you, if you don't brush your teeth and floss it and do all this stuff, your teeth are going to fall out. So you're like, okay, let me develop some habits and take care of my teeth, and then they'll start getting better. It's, you know what I mean? That's not maybe the greatest analogy, but it's just an example to say, you know, it's all about your patterns and behaviors. And it starts with asking yourself, you know, if you feel like you're unworthy and you don't believe that you're something worth living, is you start to have to think, well, what does make me feel alive? So as a coach, one of the things that I like to work on is, instead of investigating the past, let's explore the future. And that's difficult for people because they can't even think that far. They're so mired in what's happened, they can't see anything past right now of what's possible. And in order for us to shift, we have to shift our mind into possibility instead of the past. And, you know, and that's where I have to start doing visioning with people, because they don't even think they deserve anything. So all of their dreams are about this tiny, this small, you know, because they've just told themselves that they're not worthy of becoming the musician that they've dreamed that they could be, or having a baby one day, because all the people they've been with are not, you know, anybody that they've wanted to do that with, but it's something that they actually want to do, you know, and so they can't see it. It's like, well, I can't have a kid because nobody loves me. Who's going to have a kid with me? Yeah, I mean, like the things that are so, like, they actually believe that we have to start working on what is it that you want, and what is it going to take for you to believe that you're worthy of having whatever that is, whether it's a family, a job, even a hobby, you know, even something that they enjoy doing that they've deprived themselves from because they've spent so much time in despair that they don't even know what joy feels like. To just, you know, play music, or to go running, or to, you know, do something that actually makes them feel free and invigorated and have energy. And it is little by little. So those habits are difficult to change, and it takes work, but it starts. And some examples of things that I might do with somebody that changes things is, I might even have them write down what their week looks like. What do you spend time doing every single day? Show me what your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way through Sunday looks like. And let's explore how you spend your time. Because then we can investigate. If you're going to make a shift, you're going to need to take these hours that you're not doing anything and depressed and calling up an unhealthy friend that tells you a bunch of crap that's not helping. I mean, in order for you to change, you have to see right in front of you what exists. Because if you don't know where you are, you won't get anywhere else. So that's part of the first step is actually acknowledging, like, oh my gosh, I spend like 16 hours a week doing things that put me deeper into this hole. And then the question becomes, are you willing to do something different with that time? Are you willing to wake up and do positive affirmations? Are you willing to start journaling, to reflect on your feelings and start to address them instead of ignore them? Are you willing to do a true assessment? Here's another big one that I like doing with people, is to write down, who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? The most time with. Sometimes it might be nobody, because you're just stuck with yourself. Well, then how are you getting any kind of, to your point, of support, encouragement, uplifting, ideas, stimulation, if you spend all your time with you? Or if you do start writing down these names and we start digging into, okay, who's Bob, who's Sheila, who's Steve, who are these people, and they're not contributing to your elevation and your growth and your perseverance, well, then we've got to take a look at those individuals that you're spending time with. You might need to change your little board of directors in order for you to start making a new movie. You're the director. You are the person that's making the movie of your life. It just depends if you're going to end in a horror story, or if it's gonna be a different movie. But you're in the driver's seat. And so that's why I say with mindset, it starts with extreme ownership. And victims don't like doing that. They don't like owning things.
They spend more time coming up with excuses than they do looking for solutions. For myself, when it was the drinking and the drugs, I was slowly killing myself, but I was also wanting the people around me to feel sorry for me. So that's why nobody intervened and said, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh, poor guy, why don't you come over and have a drink with us? That's not healthy whatsoever. I had friends that I had been associated with for 30, 40 years that are still act like they're in high school. They're still doing the drinking and party and all that stuff, and I love them, and I would still do just about anything in the world for them. But I don't hang out with them because they're stuck in that one time in their life that they had a good time was partying in high school.
It's like a perpetual party.
Exactly. It's not always easy to walk away from those kind of relationships. I say I love people from afar.
100%. And that's why I like to say, not everybody needs a front row seat in your life.
Exactly.
There's a front row, there's a balcony, there's there's different seats. And one of the biggest things that I had to learn, and I think that for anybody going on the journey to shift your mindset, this is one of the hard, because I'm a by nature, every personality test and colors and Myers-Briggs and DISC personality that I've ever taken, I'm empathic, I'm a people pleaser, I'm all of these things that can be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's great because you attract people for your kindness and the love that you like to give, but then you can easily be used, things of that nature. And so I had to learn boundaries. Holy cow, is that hard? Saying no and recognizing where my responsibility stopped and their responsibility began. I was constantly trying to take responsibility for other people's happiness, to the point where I had to write a Post-it to put it on my computer in front of me that I could read it every day, that said, you're not responsible for other people's happiness. Why are you bearing that burden? It's hard enough to figure out what makes yourself happy every day, let alone trying to do it for your partner, or, going down the list of whomever those individuals might be. But I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how much I was trying to do that. And I had to read books and everything else to figure out, oh my gosh, this is a lot of stones that I'm carrying in a bag every day on my back. Why am I doing this? How's it serving me? And even worse, how's it serving them?
Thank you. Well, now I wanted to kind of bring this subject up, but how important do you emphasize getting rid of that safety net? Because for me, when I lived back, I grew up outside of Houston, And that's where all my family and friends, everybody's at. You know, I had a cushy job and the whole 9 yards. And I didn't really spread my wings and grow until I moved to an area where I didn't know anybody.
Mhm.
And here I am. I'm up near Austin, outside of my wife's family and friends that happen to be by here. I do have one cousin that lives close by, but for the most part, we never really were that close. But my safety net was gone. Every time if I fell, I had my mom that I could go. You know, if I needed to go stay with her, I go stay with her. I don't have that up here. Um, I mean, do you encourage people to get away from that safety net, or what's your approach?
Yeah, I encourage people to step out of their comfort zone, even if it's not in permanence, meaning it doesn't mean that you uproot your whole life and necessarily have to move to a different state to really figure out how to, do some things on your own. But it could mean developing circles around you that are different circles than the one you're comforted in, because it's in that discomfort where we grow, so we there is a place for mom, siblings, partners slash spouses, you know, your children, but there's a certain level of comfort attached to that your growth is only going to be so far. So my recommendation would be is to look at who do you need to have around you that's going to challenge you differently, that's going to push you to think differently. Think about a mentor, a coach, a business advisor. It could even be in the athletics realm, whatever the things that you're tied to and invested in that elevate your life in some way, whether it's your health and wellness, whether it is your career, or, if you're an entrepreneur. Think about those people that are going to be in your life that are going to push the envelope in ways that your comfort circle won't. It's too close to home. It's kind of like when you've got a doctor in the family,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, oh, but I can't, I can't be a doctor to the people in my family because they don't listen to me. Even though I've got a degree, I've got all this, I'm the head of the board. They're like, yeah, whatever. It's always like that. The people closest to you, it's almost too close that there's the respect level is not quite where it needs to be. That's why, like, if somebody decides that they're going to go do multi-level marketing and they come home and they're like, hey, I'm selling, new phone plans or legal plans. They're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, relax, calm down. Like they're not going to buy that stuff from you. Maybe if they feel bad for you, you have to go outside of that because people see you differently. And so, but the short answer to your question is build other circles to grow in your discomfort, because discomfort is good. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, like, well, why? Comfort is just so much easier. And yeah, I know. That's why
Yeah.
you grow in the comfort zone.
One of the most prettiest flowers out there is called a crocus. Now, if you're familiar with the crocus, it doesn't grow in the most tropical or, most uh I don't know, the most beautiful land. It grows out in the middle of the ice and snow. It breaks through that ice and snow and becomes a beautiful flower. So, and that's what we should do. I mean, okay, yeah, it's great. You have all these family and friends that are around you to say, "Oh, you're so wonderful," but it gets to be too comfortable. I have a cousin that whenever I tell him I was going to try something different, oh, no, 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 you should stay there at your job because that's got good benefits and got this and that and the other. It's like that doesn't make me happy. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. Oh, I want to move to up here around Austin. Oh no, it's too expensive. You stay right where you're at. You don't, but it's so beautiful up here. And I'm away from all the oil refineries and all that, junk. I'm seeing beautiful lakes and creeks and rivers, and I can look outside and a rabbit runs across my front yard, or I'll see a deer or whatever. Okay, so I've left that comfort of that nasty place I was before to, okay, I'm a little uncomfortable here, but I have so much beauty around me and I feel more at home around this, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And sometimes too, I mean, there's a couple different elements, because I'm sure your cousin is well-intentioned, loves you, obviously doesn't want you to do anything that's going to make your life harder. And so safety is just easier, doing what you've always done. But you will get what you've always got, right?
Exactly.
You do the same thing, your outcomes are going to be the same. And that's okay if that's what you want. If you want something different, then you can't do the same thing, because you're not going to, it's just not going to work that way. But sometimes people want you to keep doing the same thing because it's comfortable for them.
Exactly.
So
Why is it people don't like to see you succeed?
Yeah, well, and because it's easier for them, because then you can hang out, you could drink, you could party, it's fun. When you start changing and you level up, and all of a sudden you're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you're traveling, seeing the world in a different way. This person's still over here and they're seeing things from this lens, and you've now expanded. You've expanded your telescope to see way more, and they've got tunnel vision still over here. And so the distance that you create becomes further, and they can't understand. They can't understand that you want to see the world more expansively, that you want to acquire more knowledge so that you can actually do more service. Because why would you do that? That's more work, that's more energy, And so then that's when you have to start making those tough decisions about where that person is in your life. Again, it's not me saying kick out everybody, and start from scratch. It's just saying reevaluate the people in your life and how they add value to you. Because that's the other thing I would say is, are all your relationships reciprocal? Do people give as much as they take? Because for people like me, I'm just a natural giver, and I have a hard time receiving. I actually feel uncomfortable when people try to give and do it's like, no, that's okay. But so I don't mean give in the sense of like tangible, like give me a gift or give me money or give me something. But are they giving you sage advice? Mm-hmm. Are they calling you to listen in and tune in and say, how are you? Or are you always calling them and seeing what's going on? And that's what I mean about reciprocity, is the level of effort, diligence, compassion, care there, or is it all about them? Is it all about their agenda? It's all about what they want to accomplish, and you just get to go along for the ride because it's their world and you're just living in it. Balanced and healthy relationships work both ways. Hey, I know that you love going for a hike and you totally get a kick out of that. It's not really my thing, but I'll go with you. And then, next time, they're going into, some other cool thing that you think is awesome. But they care, and there's that reciprocity. And so it's not a one-sided relationship. And those are other things that we have to consider in the people around us too, because that's what balance looks like. Right? It's not about just one person's agenda all the time. And I think that happens in relationships too, and that power thing in intimate relationships, where somebody's just like we were talking about in the beginning of the interview, when you just completely lose yourself. It's not even about what you like doing anymore, because you don't even know what that is. You just go along with what the person says all day long. Okay, yeah, you want to eat there? Oh yeah, that sounds good to me.
What gets me are those folks that are in your life that try to make you feel guilty because you don't call or you don't come visit them. And you're like, well, when's the last time you called me or you came over to visit me?
Exactly. And then when they call, it says it needs something. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not just to talk, just to have a conversation, just to check in. It's hey, XYZ is going on and I need ABC. It's like, okay. It's hard for us to do an inventory like that, because sometimes we don't want to face our own reality.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, oh, that's too difficult. I don't want to do that.
Well, we've barely touched the surface on the things that you do. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. And if people want to, I don't know, get in contact with you or get into your program, how would they go about getting a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really easy because I like to keep everything consistent. So my website is bornunbreakable.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then my email is DEZ at bornunbreakable.com. And all my socials are like that. So you can find me on Instagram at bornunbreakable, on Facebook at Born Unbreakable. And so, yeah, I mean, pretty much I would suggest my website's the best place to go because it has the links to all the other social media sites. But yeah, I would say that if anyone is listening, and so I'm certified in change management.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times I help people through transition. So I mentioned a couple of different examples. I mean, it doesn't have to be extreme like divorce or anything, but just life changes, when you're sometimes going through, whether it's a breakup, a move, a career change, sometimes like we talked about, that autopilot is a little bit difficult to shift from, and having the confidence to pursue life in a different way, in a different light, is sometimes people just need a little bit of a jump start. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if that's you, can shoot me an email and we can just talk more and see how I can help you.
Yeah, I needed to meet you a couple of years ago because I had to retire early. I have a degenerative disease in my spine, and so I'm not able to do the physical things I was before. But it was a bit of it was a big change for me. Okay, that depression that comes along with the fact that I don't feel like I'm worth anything because I can't do the same things I used to do. And fortunately, I have got a better circle of friends, and they have encouraged me to keep moving forward, keep trying, don't give up, don't give in to this disease. And I don't use that as a crutch. It used to be a crutch for me. Like, oh, I can't do anything because look, I'm disabled now. That's a bunch of baloney. I know people that can paint with their mouth when they ain't got no legs or no arms.
Yeah.
And so you can do it. You just have to change that mindset of, oh, poor me, I can't do this, can't do that. Don't use anything as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
You can be successful if you really want to.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I would encourage people, do not let your ego and your pride be the death of you,
Mm-hmm.
because you're afraid to say, I don't know where to start. I need some help. I would love to be able to talk through this. And maybe it's not professional at first. Maybe it's just the right friend. I'm not saying it has to be, but if it needs to be, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a counselor or somebody that's a third party that doesn't have a stake or a gain in your life in some way. I mean, that's the reason that sometimes, even if it's just for a period of time, doesn't have to be forever. It takes the latest research says that it takes 66 days to form a new habit. So think about it. That's 2 months. Even if you gave yourself 3 months, to do a little bit of that. And think about it this way. Are you worth investing in? You're your most precious commodity. And so for you to invest a little bit, for 90 days into whatever that looked like for you, to give that jump start in your life, to develop the habits and the mindset that you need to sustain more fulfillment and joy and peace, in your life, to get out, of all the things that you tell yourself every day that's a bunch of crap, would it be worth it to you? And that's the thing that people have to remember, because I think they think like, oh, therapy, like who pays for that? Like people that tell you what to do. No, it's you having a chance to kind of figure things out, because you haven't done that, right? Like you haven't given yourself any space. So I would, if for anybody listening, I would invite people to ask yourself, do you give yourself the space that you need to become the person that's the best version of you? And if you feel like you're in a place right now that isn't the best version of you, what are you willing to do? Who are you willing to ask for some support in order for you to get there? We don't take a purposeful pause enough in our lives. Especially, in first world countries, we just move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
We just checklist everything. Okay, great. I got that done. Next, moving on to the next thing. When we live a life like that and we have no time for pausing and reflection, we wake up 5, 10, 15 years later and go, what the hell am I doing? You don't want to wait that long to figure out you're in a shit relationship, or that you've been miserable in your job for all this time, or that you are estranged from your children because you didn't have the conversations and spend the time that you needed to. You don't want to be that person, so take this opportunity, if you decided to tune in today, to just do a little bit of that take that personal time today. Take 30 minutes to yourself. Ask some of those hard questions. Do a little bit of a self-assessment. We all need that. We should be self-assessing at least like every month. That's like at a minimum, I would say, whether it's like the first of the month or the last day of the month, to give yourself that. Ask yourself, did I achieve what I wanted to? What else would I want to be pursuing this month? Give yourself the permission to grow, and don't hold yourself back because you're stuck on autopilot.
One of the things I always encourage people to do is get a vision board. You put the things up there that you want to achieve, whether, a little note to yourself, this is what I want, or maybe a picture of a car or a house or something that you really, really want. I mentioned that to somebody and he said, I have something, it's kind of like a vision board, but it's an accomplishment board. I'm like, okay. He goes, yeah, no, people don't stop to think about the things that they have done.
Yeah.
Look at the things that you have accomplished in your life. Like, that makes a lot of sense. And, in the military, they have you make your bed first thing in the morning. Do you know why they make you make your bed?
That discipline.
That's the first thing you've accomplished. You can say, look what I've done. I've made
I
my
do
bed.
it every day.
Exactly.
Every single day. And I know that there's a book about that. And it's so crazy because I can't, as much, even if I'm in a rush, I can't not make my bed. I have to do it. Like, the things have to be folded, and some days it might be, not as nice as the day before, but it's done. And it is about that discipline. It really, it really is. And there is something really special. I love that you just shared that thing about accomplishments, about visualization. Mm-hmm. Because that, going back to what we were talking about earlier, when people don't believe, one of the ways that you can start to believe is by visualizing, recognizing what you've done, like you said, maybe it was that course that you wanted to complete. So you print out that certificate and you say, yep, I was trying to do that for so long, and now I finally did it. And you print that out, and it doesn't, that's the other thing, is that not everything has to be monumental. It doesn't have to be this, it could just be, I really would love to run a mile. I might have to walk a mile first, then jog a mile, and then end up running it. But I just want to get back to doing that at least, once a week. It can be something that simple. It doesn't have to be, make $1 million by, the end of the year or whatever. Or it could be that, but it's just to say that celebrate the small things too, because the small things lead to the bigger things. So do that too. Maybe it was just, wow, this is the first day I didn't wake up and eat ice cream for breakfast. carnivorous. Like I'm trying to cut down on my junk food or, whatever it is, like give yourself that. Find those things to celebrate, because the more we do that, the more moments of joy we could find in our days. Because we find so many things to be pissed about all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
The red lights that we got while we were driving, the line that was too long when we were trying to go pick up something, the place closed by the time we got. I mean, we could pick out all kinds of things all day that we get upset about. But that's one thing that people could do today too, is find the things that make you smile.
That's
and make
right.
someone else smile, for goodness sake.
Oh yeah. That's been my goal, to make at least one person smile every day. And you could sometimes it's just saying good morning to somebody, or saying how's your day. It's amazing how you can change somebody's perspective on the whole day just by showing them a little attention. Take the focus off yourself sometimes and say, you know what, somebody else might need their day to be brightened. Go take a look at your photos. I look at my trip to when I went to New York. I always said that was one thing in this world I wanted to be able to say, is I went to New York. And now I'm not so crazy about going back there, but that's another show. But no, that those pictures of, wow, here I was at the Statue of Liberty, or here I was in Central Park, or just these different things. I'd made a trip to New Jersey while I was there. I wanted to go to Red Bank so bad, and I can say I did that. It may not mean a lot to somebody else, but for you, it might mean a whole lot. You can say, look, this is something else on my list I got to accomplish.
Exactly.
Get you a list. That's what I say. Make you a list, the things that you want to do, and look at the things that you have done, and you'll be surprised how much you really have accomplished. How many people sit there and say, I don't deserve this and I don't deserve that? And I say, why don't you? Other people have nice homes. Other people have cars. Other people have good relationships. I'm not saying you have to have the most expensive and the best things in the world, but why can't you have some of these things? If somebody else has it, why don't you deserve it?
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, I'm going to put your links in the description. And I hope people will reach out to you, because I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think you've brought in a lot of things to light and reaffirmed some things that I have thought. And I appreciate that. And besides thanking you, if you are here for the first time, thank you for stopping by the channel. I hope you'll come back. I love having people like Des here on the show that can bring some inspiration to you. And if you're a regular to the channel, thank you for being there to support us. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. So Des, I'll just say until the next time.
That's right.
And please stay in touch.
I will. This has been amazing. I love this conversation. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're very, very welcome. And to all of you, take care. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network